Shakti Devi kātyāyani Navaha. Jai Hind, folks. Welcome to Shashti of Navarātri 2021, the 6th night that we are celebrating the Devi kātyāyani. Before we venture on kātyāyani, let's have a look at her location within us, because once we operate out of that, we become kātyāyani. So the chakra in question is the most famous chakra of the third eye, ājñā. Ājñā literally means a command or an authority, and it comes from the root word knowledge, jnana, which empowers us. And if you look at the English word knowledge, na is what it starts with. Jnana, knowledge, ājñā, they're all from the same root. No wonder Will Durant called Sanskrit the mother of all languages, the famous American historian. Now, the 6th is the location that we are at in terms of the major chakras, and which means that we have transcended 5, which means the 5 elements of nature, namely earth, water, fire, air, and space. And now we are left with time, which is the cause of space. Space is the cause of air. Air is the cause of fire. And fire is the cause of water. And water is the cause of earth. In other words, gets grosser and grosser as we exhale, and gets subtler and subtler as we inhale, and elevating us to higher consciousness levels in life and in death. In exhalation, which is downwards, and inhalation, which is upwards. As the air flows, the prana flows in the opposite direction. So it's kind of complementary to each other. Now, in addition to transcending the 5 elements of solid, liquid, energy, gas, and space, we also transcended the 5 senses. And those are again very easy to remember if you have this mnemonic of STST. Yes, it starts with an S, ends with an S, and is alternated with a T. Even in the English alphabet, S and T come right next to each other, right? So what do we stand for? You know that. Smell, taste, sight, touch, sound. S-T-S-T, yes. And we have transcended all of them, which means we still need a way to perceive, because this is the Chakra of Perception. Chalana kriyati iti chakra. That which makes us move is chakra. But those chakras can take us only up to this point. And it's the ājñā chakra which has brought us to this point. Beyond this, the chalana karoti is not by a chakra or a wheel, but by grace. And that we look at tomorrow night. But up to this point, we can travel through various techniques, and that's why chakras or wheels are important, even though they have triangular elements within them, apart from the circular elements and the petals of the lotus. If we have transcended the 5 senses, how are we able to perceive? First of all, the senses were perceiving in the outward direction, the external objects of perception, whereas in spirituality, in is the only way out, and all of these 5 senses were more of distractions rather than utility, and therefore we need to give them up. And that's what we have precisely done with the help of becoming Shailaputri, becoming Brahmacharini, becoming Chandraghanta, becoming Kushmanda, and becoming Skandamata last night. Now that we have lost the sense of hearing as well, or rather withdrawn it, because it's of not utility one thing, but it's also a distraction, and therefore we ourselves have evolved as kātyāyani, which is what we are here. So again the question remains, so then how do we perceive? Well, we still need an instrument of perception, and that's intuition. And that's what is the symbolism of the third eye that you see over here. The bindi or tilak that we apply in between the eyebrows, which are right in front of the pituitary gland and then the pineal gland. Even in the physical body, these play a huge, humongous role in terms of even material happiness, leave alone bliss and ecstasy, which we are yet to discover. So now, this is an intuitive field, which means that we need to recognize what we have become, kātyāyani. Here, we had become Skandamata, the mother of our own child, the universe. But now, here we are kātyāyana's daughter, kātyāyani. Kātyāyana, the rishi, is a seer. And so, by being born to a seer, we are recognizing the importance of seeing in an intuitive sense. But let's not minimize this into a regular father-daughter pair over here, Kātyāyana Maharishi and Kātyāyani Devi, because that's what we have become internally, and that's far more than a biological daughter that we're talking about. Because if you break up the word Katya and Ayana, or Ayani for that matter, just like in Narayana I told you, it's the journey or yatra, Ayana, of Nara, the Manushya. Here, it is the journey of Katya. What is Katya? Katya is a form of Kritika, the Pleiades, which is the nearest constellation to Earth at 444 light years away. And it is known for its series of black holes, apart from the 6 or 7 sisters as it's known even in the European culture, especially the Greek mythology, and the same concept remains in English and in astronomy as well. And this being so close, relatively speaking, compared to the other constellations, is visible with the naked eye many a times, as long as artificial lights of the cities don't bother you, and it's not a very cloudy night, clear skies, then you see that it can be actually observed. Every now and then I'll check for whether the recording is going on, so please excuse me. I don't want to lose this, because today is very special amongst this whole journey, because this is the last of the sattva. Many people think sattva, purity, peace, is the goal. No, my friends, this is the maximum, of course, that one can achieve using techniques. And in fact, Shiva, our own nothingness, has taught Parvati, that means our own energy, 112 different techniques to reach from the Muladhara to the ājñā chakra. But beyond that, no techniques, only grace, and it happens automatically. So this is the position to which you, I, and every one of us can strive with our efforts to reach. Hereafter, it's going to be just effortless. And why do we need efforts? Precisely because of the karmic bondage that we have gotten into. which was created by itself by efforts, and so effort is needed to remove the effort. As they say, a thorn is needed to remove a thorn, or a diamond is needed to cut another diamond. Similarly, the karmic aspect is through effort, and therefore its balancing or removal is also through effort, and we have reached the ājñā chakra. And then it's up to grace to take us tomorrow night to the Sahasrara and beyond, which means beyond sattva, since we have already transcended tamas below the Mooladhara, rajas from the Mooladhara to the Manipura, and sattva we will transcend after tomorrow night. Therefore, all three kinds of gunas have been transcended. The lethargy, which is tamas, the passion, which is rajas, and the purity, which is sattva. And therefore, since this is the maximum that you can achieve through effort, many people think this is the goal. They think peace is the goal, purity is the goal, morals are the goal, ethics are the goal. No! These can only take us this far and no further. Afterwards, you just need to surrender everything and grace takes care of it. Because we have to become our nothingness, and then we lose our ahamkara, which is the I-ness, both H-I-G-H-N-E-S-S and I-N-E-S-S. The identification with the various roles that we play as a family member, as a member of the society, as a member of a certain profession, in our workplace, in the nation and in the world, and amongst other living beings like plants, trees, animals, birds, etc. All of that is lost for the biggest gain that you have. That is, you're losing the finite for the infinite. And that's the beauty of going beyond the ājñā. But right now, we are at ājñā, we are kātyāyani. So let's understand who we are. As I mentioned, Katya is a simplified form of saying kritika. So it's an ājñā towards kritika, which is a nakshatra owned by the sun. And the sun is symbolized by the right eye, because the pingala nadi, which is on the right side, is the masculine nadi represented by the sun. The perception that we used to get is through the physical sun so far, which is a symbol of our Atma, Atma Swarupa, Surya, and the Surya Nadi or the Pingala Nadi helped us to see thus far. On the left, we have the Ida Nadi. She's called the Chandra Nadi, and therefore the left eye is associated with Chandra, Ham and Sham, referring to the Bija mantras or syllables of the sun and the moon. Now is the time to go further, but before that we have to recognize what these are as the seeds. Told you Kritika is owned by the sun, but the sun in turn owns Simha Rashi or Leo in the zodiac signs, the 12 zodiac signs. And Chandra or the moon owns Karkataka Rashi, or what is known as Cancer in the English language. Now, compared to the others, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter and Saturn, all of which own 2 houses each, the sun and the moon own only 1 house each, Leo and Cancer. And this is very significant by itself. Already we are losing the duality once we get into the perception, even at the mental level or the soulful level, and we are left with just 1 house each. And this ordering is very easy to remember if you know from your very basic middle school physics. In our solar system, the sun is in the middle, and the closest planet to it is Mercury. The next closest is Venus. The next closest is, after Earth, Mars. Then the next is Jupiter and Saturn. Of course, below that, Uranus, Neptune, etc. in the Talatala, Pathala, Lokas of our tamasic lethargic nature. Not of much significance to those on the spiritual path. And in fact, those who have already risen to the ājñā chakra, these grahas, the so-called Nava-grahas, the 9 consumers, do not consume anymore. In reality, even during the path, they were just diagnostic tools like a stethoscope, a sphygmomanometer, an electrocardiogram, etc. Just to showcase what not only our physiological but also psychological and intellectual states were. And now these tools have no place. Like for a dead person, there's no point in using any of these tools. Similarly, for those who are dead to the material world and have risen to the spiritual world, who are dead to the outer world and awakened to the inner world, which is infinity as opposed to the finite outer world or outer universe. There is no room for any of these grahas playing any influence. But till tonight we are at this stage as kātyāyani, and so we need to talk about kritika, the nakshatra which is owned by the sun, which is shared between Taurus and Aries, Mars and Venus being the owners irrespectively and reverse the order. Now, it shows the amount of masculine and feminine creativity going into it and the soulful nature, kritika. But if you look at what is exalted in each one of these places, I already told you, in the house of our patience, it is perseverance which thrives. In the house of our wisdom, it is our creativity and luxury which thrives. In the house of our perseverance, it is our soulful nature and our mystical nature which thrives. And in the house of our luxury, in the house of our creativity, what thrives? 3 aspects of us thrive. Our patience thrives here, our hallucinatory imagination thrives here, and our emotional mind thrives here. Then we came to the level of the intellect. Who thrives there? Intellect itself. Only intellect thrives in the intellect. And now that we have come to our emotional mind location, what thrives there? Wisdom thrives there in the form of bhakti. Jnana becomes bhakti or the jnana over there. So we've covered all the 9 aspects, the 9 grahas, also to be transcended tomorrow night. So you're going to transcend the Buddhas, you're going to transcend the grahas as well. Already we have transcended the Panchabhutas and the 5 sense organs and the organs of action which are associated with it in pairing level. So we're left only with the mind, with the Atma, as the 2 grahas, the moon and the sun. Graha is normally translated as planet in English, but it's not true. Graha is Grahana Shakti, a consumer. And the moon and the sun are also consumers in that sense, along with Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter and Saturn. Now, apart from the fact that kritika is that Pleiades, it also represents the nurturing nature of who took care of Skanda as Shanmukha, Armadan, or the 6-phased one, with each phase having a third eye like this, and therefore 6 third eyes and which means absolute total perception. So we saw that Skanda Subramanya, Durga, Kartikeya was incubated here, was born here, and is taken care of here, but his karma bhumi is the Swadhisthana Chakra, which he rules, which he goes back to rule. Now, coming back to Kritika, these 6 sisters nurture the baby knowing fully well that it's not their biological child, and it is that nature which we have to come up with over here. We already said that as Skanda was our child and therefore we took care of it. But recognizing now that Skanda is the entire universe, the Kritika takes care of it even if it's not its own biological child. Hence that expansion of motherliness to not only those born out of us, but to those which are everything else, within quotes, because nothing is else. We are it and it is us. In that journey towards that realization of wisdom up here, the actual Jupiterian or Jovine wisdom, as we call it, has peaked over here because Jupiter is exalted in Cancer or Kartika Rashi of the moon in the mind, which is full of bhakti and devotion, and Surya, which is full of jnana, and therefore together they help us rise in grace to our eventual goals of Trigunatika states of the Sahasrara tomorrow night, followed by the Matru day after tomorrow night, and the day or night rather after that at the Gayatri Chakra. Now let's look at the form of kātyāyani. She has 4 hands, just like all the Devis from this stage onwards, from Skandamata stage onwards, all 4 hands. Maximum of 10 and 8 were already reached where action was needed, and slowly action dropped, and now action drops even further. Even weapons had dropped over here. But Skanda, the baby in the hands of the mother Skandamata, had weapons, as I said. And here some people are surprised. Kātyāyani, in one of her 4 hands, she holds that weapon, which is a sword. But if you actually look at the mantra for kātyāyani, it actually calls that weapon as a bright moon. And that's why you see that sword is shining so much. And so what we are actually talking about is a Jupiter within the house of the moon, Karkatika, therefore exalted, a kind of a Vijakeshari yoga of the moon and the Jupiter coming together, which is our mind and wisdom coming together. And therefore, what we are talking about is not only earlier we were wearing the moon outside as an ornament, now we have taken it out and holding it with one of our hands as kātyāyani in the form of a bright sword, showing that it is a sword of wisdom. It's not a sword to kill people or kill any other living being, but a sword of wisdom to remove all ignorance. Because people think ignorance is bliss. In fact, that's a proverb, right? And that's the same proverb which means that tamas and Trigunatita states, or for that matter even sattva, can many times be confused with each other. Some people might be tamasic, but they themselves think that they are sattvic or Trigunatita. No, there's a subtle difference between that. Even other observers, when they look at a person who could be tamasic, but they think that the way they act, it's like sattva or Trigunatita. And sometimes a Trigunatita person like a Siddha can seem to be tamasic to us. But no, tamas has been transcended. Only then we got to the Rajas state of Mahalakshmi Narayana and the Sattva state of Saraswati Brahma, and now we are venturing from tomorrow night into the Trigunatīta state of Parvati Shiva, the ultimate. And this is what we are evolving into, not a hierarchy amongst the so-called gods somewhere outside there. It is our evolutionary process. As I said, we evolved from amoeba and other single-cell entities like bacteria, virus, etc. to various plant and animal kingdom entities to become a human being at the Mooladhara, where we have lost all of our tamasic nature, unlike few people who might still have those animalistic or plant-like tendencies, but most human beings are rajasic in nature. And that's why they mostly pray to Lakshmi Narayana. But then once they cross their rajasic nature and enter the sattvic plane, the entity that they start praying to is Saraswati Brahma. And then when they cross the Saraswati Brahma plane, they recognize that why was I praying to all of them? They were me. It's stupid to pray to oneself, just like it's as stupid as loving oneself. This has again become a very common thing amongst a lot of these motivating speakers to say love yourself. That is possible only if you are schizophrenic or possessed, in which case you need a psychiatrist or an exorcist. But no, we are one individual, and the word individual comes from indivisible, the same root, and therefore we can never love ourselves, but we can be love. We can be the entity that we think we love, but that is the truth. It is not an imagination, but that is the reality. What we are living through in our waking state is actually a big dream between birth and death. Only at death we recognize that we are awakened and, whoa, that was a dream? The whole life. But we can awaken even before death. We don't need to wait for death to awaken. That is the state of a Jivan Mukta, or one who is liberated while being alive. And for that, the third eye of intuition needs to open up. Again, going back to the etymology of kātyāyani and kātyāyana, both of these, kātyāyani is born to kātyāyana, who is born to Kātya, another great rishi, and Kātya is in the lineage, thankfully, of my own Vishwamitra Maharishi, the Raja Rishi, who in turn is the Kaushiki Gotra. So Kaushiki, Vishwamitra, Kātya, kātyāyana and kātyāyani. So that is the lineage that we are talking about over here. But more than a biological lineage like that, where genetic transmission has taken place, what is far more significant over here is the meaning of Kātya as a black hole, as something that we can fall into, and that is intuition. Because once intuition arises, all of the other things which made us look so smart and intelligent are like child's play. Oh, we were doing these silly, stupid things and calling ourselves as an intellectual? Amazing! And then we recognize the real meaning of kātyāyana, or kātyāyani for that matter, is not all those rishis and goddesses and all that, but the fact that we are falling into a bottomless pit, which can never hurt because there's no bottom. It's only if there is a bottom, you fall, you hit something and it hurts you. But here we are beyond that. Even the physical system, there is a upgradation that we were looking at. At the Mooladhara, we were focused too much on our excretory system. At the Swadhisthana Chakra, we were focused very much on our reproductive system. We came to the Manipura Chakra, we focused too much on our digestive system. Then we came to the Anahata Chakra, we got more focused on our circulatory system and respiratory system. Then we came to the Vishuddhi Chakra, and then we got focused more on our sensory apparatus and apparatus of communication, the apparatus of creativity through our organs of action. So the organs of the senses, organs of action became very, very significant. And then the endocrine system, in particular the pituitary and the pineal glands, and the secretion of amrita became so very significant. But tomorrow night is an opportunity to transcend all of these and get into a Trigunatīta state where none of the grahas affect us, astrology doesn't affect us. Even while we were here, there were only diagnostic tools just to see what our karmic structure is, how much the balance is getting, how stable are we, at whatever stage we are, and what direction we are moving in. Just to get an idea of these things, all these helped. Now we drop the tools of astrology as well, of Jyotisha, because we're beyond the sun and the moon and into the third eye of perception, true perception, looking at things as they are. That's why we are mystics and we are sages, we are seers, we are rishis. kātyāyanaaya vidmahe Kanyakumari Dhimahi Tanno Durgihi Prachodayat Jhakavedhase Sunadabhasoma Marati Hato Nidahati Vedaham Sanaha Parsharati Durgani Vishwa Navegha Sindham Dhuritātyagnihi Tabhagnivarna Tapasa Jvarantim Vairochanim Karma Phaleshu Jushtam Durgam Devigam Sharanamaham Prapadhye Sutarasi Tarase Namaha